And good evening. It's Wednesday night. It's your product experience and training call. I'm your good friend Keith Hooper with my darling bride Sandra here in Central California. We're joined this evening by our good friend Dr. Barry White out of Ontario, Canada. Good evening, Dr. White.
Good evening, Keith.
And Doug LeClaire has the night off. I don't know how that happened, but it did. He just flat run away. So that happens every once in a while. And we're got another guest that we're going to have on here tonight as well. But as always, we start these calls. These are intended as a training calls for Immunotech distributors, and as such, the products from Immunotech research do not cure anything. But as Hippocrates said some 2,500 years ago, let food be thy medicine. Simply, they're the most important foods you can use: Immunocal Platinum, as well as our other great products. Look at that. All right. So tonight we're going to take a look at something. You know, Dr. White, we did a Zoom-tacular some time ago with Dr. Daniel Linesman. And for those of you that may not have seen that or are aware of it, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Keith. Go to YouTube, and in the search box, type in my name, and you'll pull up a video there from today that I loaded up. There, and it's going to be Dr. Dan Linesman. It was from 4 hours ago, and you'll see it there. And that was from something that he did in 2010, and then there's a link there to some other information. But what did Dr. Linesman tell us? Dr. Linesman told us and shared with us that literally, if you take Immunocal and you suffer a head injury, a closed head injury, a traumatic brain injury, that there was a 25% better outcome if you used Immunocal. And in the early parts of the study, they would refer to it simply as a whey protein concentrate, which was Immunocal. That's what they were using. Okay, and he was using, and that's what he shared when he came onto our webinar. So you can go to YouTube, put in my name, it'll pull up the one. There's another link to another video in that subject right below. It'll take you to the one that's 15 minutes where he talks about Alzheimer's and how this affects the brain. So we have the studies, but you know, Dr. White, we had all the times that people would say to me, he said, well, that's really good. You got the animal studies on the mice, but when are we going to see what it does in humans? And I would always come back with a tongue-in-cheek and say, well, you know, we're looking for volunteers. Okay, so if you're ready to volunteer, it's not a problem, but let me just explain what we're going to do. We're going to hit you in the head with a hammer, okay, and we're going to cause a concussion, and then when we're finished with the study, we're going to take your brain out. Now, some of the people I know are already missing their brains, okay, so it would be hard to even get them to volunteer. But I think it's important as we look at where we are today and going forward, and we're going to talk about this as how this relates to children, but I think it's important. So we have the results from that study with Dr. Linesman about that a closed head injury, a traumatic brain injury, that if they used Immunocal, there was a 25% better outcome. Okay, not shorten the time of healing, not a 25% faster recovery. A 25% better outcome. Now, this is important. And, you know, so once again, the studies are great, and we have that, but people want to know, well, what does this actually do for me? And I've asked my friend David Kreitz to come on tonight and to share his personal story about what we could say was probably even better than I would think, David, probably even better than a 25% outcome. You agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
So you want to share people, so this is our friend David Lee Kreitz. And so David, you want to share your experience?
You bet. About 2 months after my daughter introduced me to the Immunotech business, I started taking Immunocal Platinum on a daily basis. And I had an accident which caused a severe brain injury. I was at a client site when I fell headfirst into a solid metal firewall door where I cracked my skull. Now, it wasn't cracked open, but, you know, it was cracked. Since the client happened to be a rehab hospital, I had immediate access to the full range of medical interventions that were available. Now, the most obvious manifestation, you know, after a couple of days, was that I couldn't speak properly. It's a condition called dysphagia. I would think of a sentence that I wanted to say, but it was like my mouth just would not cooperate. Even if I got the whole sentence out, it was so halting that listening to it was obviously painful. And then often, I might pause in the middle of a word. And when that happened, there was a really good chance I simply couldn't finish the sentence. I would literally have to think of another way to say it that did not use the word my mouth was stuck on and start all over with that sentence. Within a week, I started working with the Speech and Language Pathology team who diagnosed the severity of the condition, and they said it would be several years, if ever, before my speech might return to normal. The funny thing is that after about a month or so, my prognosis went from, quote, several years to, quote, looks like you're almost fully recovered. I was still having a number of issues, but with training, I could work around them so I could speak in a way that others could easily understand me. Now, the Speech and Language Pathology team, they had no clue how I recovered so quickly, and one even questioned my initial expression, claiming I was pretending to be worse than I really was. After all, in all of their experience, nobody recovered from a brain injury like mine in that kind of time frame. Now, at the time, I knew it was the Immunocal Platinum.
It started.
Am I still here?
Yeah, you're here. Go ahead.
At the time, I really knew it was the Platinum, but, there was no proof of it, so I just tried telling people that I took this and that's what it did to help me. But now that we got Dr. Linesman's published studies about brain health and recovery with Immunocal, there's actual scientific evidence to back up my initial hunch and my reality. And I just got to say, man, I'm glad my daughter introduced me to Immunotech and got me on Platinum.
Well, thank you, David Lee. I appreciate you sharing that with us here. So, Dr. White, as we're looking at Dr. Linesman's study where he said that we're looking at a 25% better outcome, okay, now we've got some people that are experiencing that, right?
Yeah. In terms of people who have, well, we got hockey players and all that, but we have a number of people just in ordinary walks of life who slip, fall, and so on. So we see them, as long as they're on Immunocal before the accident happens, they do a magnificent job of recovery.
Right. So what we're thinking about here tonight, I want you to think about this. I don't know about where you're living, but where I'm living, we notice that kids got things for Christmas. And in my particular neighborhood down the street, one of my neighbors gave his grandkids little four-wheelers that are gas-powered. And now these are little kids. These are 5, 6-year-old kids. And they're out there on these little four-wheelers running up and down the street. And if they pulled up beside you, even with that little plastic pie plate on top of their head that they call a helmet, okay, they wouldn't even come up to your waist. I've never seen these four-wheelers this small. But the point that we're looking at, would it be a good idea that these kids were on Immunocal? Maybe 1 packet a day? We think about that. Or maybe they got a skateboard. Skateboard is a contact sport. Okay, the person on the skateboard will contact the pavement. Okay, so you don't think about it as a contact sport. But we were talking about this earlier, Dr. White. So if you've got young kids, 1 packet a week, maybe 2 packets a week. Okay, to get them on it, just so you have in the habit of getting them on them, giving some protection going into it. But the fact that you've got it on hand if something happens is really important, Dr. White.
Yeah, it's good to have your system prepared. An accident or a head injury may never happen, but it happens to a lot of people, like more than 10% of the population, and it happens not because you're careless, but just because life happens. And up in this territory, we got ice and snow to worry about. In that process, you know that someplace or other you're going to have a call on it. You're going to need it. So it's just good to have yourself prepared. Earlier, a while ago, like 20 years ago, we knew this, that A person who is, let's say, is in a car accident or something like this, and there's some matter of injury, no matter what it is, within 4 hours of the injury, their ability, their glutathione levels, their ability to handle, called being better at what they're doing and so on, that whole thing drops 40% in 4 hours. So you just have to be ready, no matter what it is, especially in wintertime. You have to be ready.
Right. So you got to be ready. You got to be ready to take action. And the idea here is, once again, if you got kids and they're 5, 6, 7 years old, 8 years old, get them on one packet a week. So we're talking about literally 2 boxes a year of regular Immunocal. Okay. Now, are they going to benefit from that 1 packet a week? Yeah, they are. There's going to be something that's there. But when they're young, they're generally in pretty good shape. Okay. But they got it on hand. And the point is, if something happens, they've got the Immunocal on hand. On hand. Because as you heard from David Lee's story, okay, I would say that was greater than a 25% better than anticipated outcome. Wouldn't you, David Lee?
Yeah, it was a 95% better outcome.
95%. So it's a good thing. So, but once again, you didn't have to wait. You didn't have to think about it. You didn't have to contemplate it. All you had to do was start taking more of it, right?
Yeah, that's it.
So once again, as you're looking at people and thinking about these kids, like I say, it just scares the heck out of me when I'm seeing these kids. A concern. I'm not going to say it scares me. That's not a concern. I look at these kids. They're on these little 4-wheelers. Okay. They're on the streets. We're not out in the country. We don't live in the country now. We live in town. And they're on the streets here, curbs and cars and garbage cans and people backing out of their driveways could, and the idea that that little plastic plate that they think is a helmet is going to do something for these little kids is not very there. Not a very good idea. The other thing that you think about is we're going to be heading into springtime. It's hard to think of as, January, that we're going to be heading into spring. But we head into spring, and the number one percentage of people that suffer closed head injury is girls junior soccer. Girls junior soccer. So would it be a good idea if every caring parent had a box of Immunocal or 2 boxes of Immunocal for their child that's playing soccer? And they take one packet a week. You might even, Randy May and I were talking about it earlier today. You might want to even look at the fact that maybe they want to take 2. Maybe they want to take one on Friday and one on Saturday. Okay, if they're playing hockey, if they're playing soccer, or they're playing football, or they're riding, or they're on skateboards, that contact sport, because they are going to contact the ground. Okay, or maybe they're on roller skates. Okay, so the idea here is to take this information, and we're going to be doing this going into 2024. Where we're going to be taking the scientific research that says, oh, there's these great improvements, okay, whether it be autism, whether it be, the cancer studies that we've got, whether it's be whatever it happens to be, that we're going to highlight the study and show the way to go get that study and then tie it in with somebody who has received those benefits, those blessings, you will, of this incredible product, Dr. White.
And again, what's that we call it, Boy Scouts of America kind of thing? Always be prepared, semper preparatus. Always be prepared. The wise man, wise woman, is prepared for circumstances that may not occur that often, but just in case, particular things, just in case, to be prepared. And to be prepared is to what? Have a better outcome by far.
Right. So we shared that information here regarding the Dr. Linesman. Now, once again, you can go to YouTube and just put in my name, Keith Hooper, and click on my videos. And I put it up about 4 hours ago. 5 people have looked at it. It's 11 minutes with Dr. Linesman at doing a TED Talk. Okay, that TED Talk you sent me, Dr. White. Okay, so yep. I've got it loaded up there on my YouTube channel. And then once again, if you click on that, and then there's a link in the description box below the video that'll take you to the other video of Dr. Linesman talking about Alzheimer's. So the idea here is to be able to have these conversations with people about this incredible product that you can expect the results from. Okay, that's what we're talking about, is expected results. So you heard from David Lee Kreitz regarding obviously better than a 25% outcome, improvement in outcome. We look around us with all these little, all the circumstances that we have, that it would be a wise idea to get people on our Immunocal. Further thoughts, Dr. White?
You know, I'm just thinking, going into the new year, there are New Year's resolutions to make and keep. And one of those resolutions is always make sure you have enough. Well, first of all, that you're taking the Immunocal products, and secondly, that you have enough to handle an emergency. So that's a good resolution, to not just make and forget about, but to make and keep.
Right. So once again, you want to use this product. Now, you know, last week we had a lady that was on, and we were talking about Immunocal, and there was a comment in there regarding doing kinesiology and our muscle testing on how much Immunocal you should take. And, you know, they were making the reference that they had this done by someone, and that they were recommending 2 packages a day, and we were talking about wanting to take 4 because of a particular issue that her husband was dealing with. And we were going through that comment about why we want to go to 4 is because of the science. So it caused me to do a little more research on kinesiology. And you know, Dr. White, as I pulled it up and I did the research in here, that part of what you're doing is the physiological part, and then there is the body-mind connection that is also part that plays into the connection of the mind healing the body with that part of it's there. So one of the things we want to think about, if anyone's doing kinesiology and anyone's doing, you know, muscle testing with kinesiology, one of the things we want to make sure that they hold in their mind as they're doing this, that the product is free. Okay, because otherwise, if they have a feeling that they can't afford it, I think that based on what I read today, there would be a reasonable assumption that that's going to have an impact on how effective they're going to think Immunocal should be, or how much they're going to take. Okay, so once again, making sure that when the person is going to do as a kinesiology test with it, that there's not the inhibitor, if you will, of cost. That does have an effect, and once again, I read a little bit on that today, this afternoon, on going into that muscle testing, Dr. White.
And the other part about the muscle testing is, if you test in the package, in Immunocal in the package, all you're testing is not the Immunocal, you're testing the package. So they're often aluminum and so on. So those are what's being tested. To make it work, you have to put the Immunocal in a glass jar or something glass, which will pass through the molecular vibration. So just to be aware of that, I've had people deny Immunocal on the basis of muscle testing, but all they're testing is the package and not the contents.
Right. So anyway, just something we wanted to touch on tonight with that. So once again, as you're thinking about it, and if somebody says they want to do the muscle testing or the kinesiology with it, just, you know, make sure you set the parameters. So the 2 parameters are, take the Immunocal and put it in a glass container, okay, that they can hold in their hand, and then also eliminate the thought of the cost. Okay, because once again, if somebody's thinking I need to take 4 packages a day, and we're talking about platinum, okay, well, you know, you're well over $400 a month, and that's going to have an effect on the fact of, gee, I can't afford that much, so my body better tell me I need less than that. And I just think that that's something that everybody needs to be aware of if they're looking at doing that kinesiology testing, and keep that in mind. Okay. Further thoughts, Dr. White?
No, that'll do me for the night, or for the year. Oh no, we're on Saturday too. Oh well, yeah, that'll do me for tonight.
Well, this is the last Wednesday of the year. We're finishing out. We're heading into 2024, and once again, going into 2024, we want to set the parameters for the calls, where we're going to highlight the science and then highlight people that have had the benefit that the science said they should expect. Because one of the things that we talk about so often is Immunocal works every time given time. And that's what we're going to come back and test to. So where you heard from David Lee Kreitz tonight regarding, hitting his head against a fire door and cracking his skull, okay? And you're going to hear from other people as we go through the 2024, whether it's, we get Anthony back on regarding his son, okay, and with autism, or we get someone with the cancer that talks about that, or somebody with allergies, or somebody, because allergies are simply an abnormal immune response. And Randy May's got an amazing story with that. So once again, you balance out the system as Dr. White talks about. So once again, we want to share that on these Wednesday night calls going into 2024, and we're very, very happy you're here. All right, so once again, the products are intended for the exclusive use of Immunotech distributors. As such, the products from Immunotech research do not cure anything, but as Hippocrates said some 2,500 years ago, make sure you take your Immunocal. If he knew what it was, what he actually said was, let food be thy medicine. The most important food you can use, Immunocal, is Immunocal Platinum, as others are other great products as well. All right, we're every Wednesday night. The reason for these calls is because of you people. Okay, all of you wonderful people that come and share your thoughts, your stories. Thank you, David Lee, for sharing your story tonight. Hopefully, people got that and got great insight into. Hey, man, you might want to get on Immunocal, and if you care about your family and friends and your young kids, whatever, you want to get them on Immunocal for a lot of good reasons there. And like I say, very easy when you're only talking about 2 boxes a year. Seriously. No, we're not talking about that's a pretty minor investment for a lifetime of good brain health. So with that, Happy New Year, everyone. Keith and Sandra Hooper wishing you a great evening, and we appreciate all of you very much, and we will talk to all of you in 2024 on the next Wednesday will be then. Have a great evening, everyone, and good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.